Hi, welcome back to another TerranScapes video. Today I wanted to show you a couple pieces that I've recently completed that I've altered a little bit, try to improve them somewhat. A customer asked me to do a large Martian modular board set, which included several pieces, including the mine entrance and the vegetation stands, and I've changed them just a little bit to try to enhance them a little bit more. So let's take a closer look at them and I'll show you some of the things I've done. So here you see a pair of Martian desert stands. They are, wait a minute, let's see here. They are about, say 8 inches by, 3 to 4, depending on where you're measuring from. These are finished with the Pegasus Hobbies cacti. I've shown these in the past. These are the only cacti I can find on the market that look halfway decent, and that almost sounds like I'm giving them a complaint. I really like them, and I think they're wonderful to scale, and they have a variety of sizes and a couple different forms as well. What has been changed is that in the previous set of stands, I had them be a little bit larger in their footprint, and so I ended up with a lot of gaps in between the stands that are removable, so that you could put, troops into the, into the environment here. And what that forced me to feel like I had to fill in those gaps so it didn't look like little globules of cacti. And so I had put in a few cacti in between those open spots, which of course defeats the purpose of being able to remove these. So in this instance, I decided to shrink it down a little bit, make it conform to the circles quite a bit more, and that way I wouldn't have open space that I felt like I had to fill. The second thing that I did is I decided to change the size of the circles. I had 4 of the same size before, so now what I've done is altered it. So I have 2 large, 2 small, and I think that just breaks it up, gives it a little bit more variety, and enhances its overall look. So that gives you a little shot of what the cacti stands look like. One of the things I'd be really curious to hear if anybody has a suggestion for is how to improve the tightness of the stands fitting into the circles. One of the ways that I cut this, just to give you a little sense of that, I use hole saw. All right, deep secret here in the TerranScapes labyrinth. I use a hole saw to cut these out, and this is a nice adjustable hole saw so that you could put in different size blades, and then there's a little screw that goes into the side to retain the blade while you're doing the actual cutting, and then afterwards you can just pop that out and put in a different one. One of the problems is that you can see here there's a little gap between the blades, so I can't vary it in a continuous way. And what that ends up meaning is that when I cut the hole, the disc that I retrieve from the hole is slightly smaller than the hole itself, because there's I'm no carpenter, I think that's called the kerf of the blade or whatever. Basically the thickness of the blade sawing away material leaves that gap around them. And it's something I'd like to tighten up a little bit in the future. So if there's some tool out there that people know about, or another method of cutting perfect circles that allows me to eliminate that problem, I would love to hear about it. As it's not terribly noticeable when you have them centered, but when one is off center, you can really see there's a little bit of a gap on that side, and that's something I'd like to tighten up in the future. But anyway, I like the improvement I've done on these overall. Still, this is one of the more delicate pieces of terrain that I do, because these are based on hardboard. Of course, you can see the filled circle there from the drill bit. I have to use a little hot glue or super glue or some combination of the two to attach these, and it does have a very, very small attachment point. Oh, you're not going to focus now? I see. There we go. It's a very small attachment point for some of these cacti, so they're a little prone to popping off. I mean, it's pretty quick to fix with a little drop of super glue on your own, but I'd like to make them more durable in the future. Not really sure how to go about that. Something I'm going to keep thinking about. And here you see the mine shaft opening. The mine shaft opening is a corner section to go with the modular board set. The mine shaft features a carving that I cut out of the foam, and then I put in some wooden braces. I actually intended them to come out this way, and the way I had cut it, I wasn't thinking, and so I ended up angling them inward. But it works. It's all right. But I might try to be more thoughtful about that in the future. And the wood has been distressed a little bit, and this is balsa wood. And then I've used some, Micromark makes a Age-It liquid that you can dip wood into to gray it or to brown it. And I really like the effect that gives to very natural graying on the wood. So I've gone in with that. And then I've also used a little bit of weathering powders on it that I've used on the tracks and the ballast, and I've tried to bring that up onto the wood in some areas, and I don't know how clearly that'll show, although I always say that, and it does come out pretty clear in the videos usually, so hopefully you'll be able to see that. But the real addition for this has been the addition of the railroad track itself. I've always felt like the mine needed a, rail cart entrance, something like that, where the cart's entering to, go down and whatever, retrieve some ore. And I ended up quite a while ago doing a project for another customer that involves some railroad pieces, so I've had some railroad sections on hand, and I decided, well, let's just go for it and add them in here. The thing about the railroad is that, really, because it's being added on afterwards, obviously I can't add this and then paint all this with a spray gun, so this is all added after the fact. It's a bit of an irregular surface to lay the track on, but it's nice to hide that by adding in the ballast. This is Woodland Scenic's ballast. It's normally a bright gray, and what I did for that is after I put the track down and put the ballast down, I went in with some of the Model Mates weathering liquids. Now, I've mentioned those before. I will be doing a review of that very shortly, but I went in with those on the tracks, gave them a little bit of a rusty, sooty, oily appearance. Then I went back over all of this with some weathering powders to try to mute down the gray, tie in some of the red from the surrounding rocks onto that, through accumulation of dust, or perhaps I just felt like it didn't look like it fit the scene. Where did these bright gray rocks come from? Even though I thought originally, well, perhaps, in the mine there is a, an ore that they've been digging out and they're using that for the ballast, maybe something like that. But I wanted to at least tie it in together. I think having done that, it makes it a little bit less noticeable that the track is there. It definitely jumped out more at a distance when it was the bright gray ballast underneath the track. So, I don't know, a little bit of a compromise. With realism, sometimes you take away some of the eye pop, so I might play with that in future iterations. But I felt really pretty positive overall with the first experiment. I've never tried to integrate track into any of the pieces I've done before. I didn't do anything to distress the railroad ties other than give them a dry brush, as they're solid plastic, and I thought it might be a little tricky to do that. And I haven't, this was sort of extra work I was doing free for this customer because, he'd already pre-purchased this without that addition, so I figured I'd just try it out. So I didn't want to spend a terribly large amount of time in it, and it did take quite a while to lay that as it was. So something I'll play with. Like I've said, I'm probably rambling, but wanted to give you a chance to see that and see how it's not terribly difficult to integrate something like that into a terrain piece, especially with a short section like this and a hidden inside where you don't have to worry about making connections with it and hiding those connections. Just to give you a little sense of what the railroad track looks like. This is, I believe this is HO scale, although I'd have to double check the packaging. I don't have it in front of me. But you can see it's got, the bright, shiny brass rails. This is, these of course conduct electricity for the actual rail, the locomotives when you're running your track. And you can see, hopefully if it'll focus, there we go. The railroad ties, oh, yeah, you're not going to focus for me. See if we can get you there. I just wanted to show you, they do have, no, there we go. Well, that's probably the best I'm going to do. They do have some nice wood grain molded into the plastic, which is kind of nice. And if you really wanted to get, picky, you could pick out all of those little ties because those are iron spikes that have been nailed into a metal plate to hold the rail down. I did not go in and try to individually pick those out as I, again, that's pretty crazy to do for something if you want to keep your time investment down. But I did try to go in with a little extra weathering powder alongside some of those spots to, maybe give them the sense that they had a little more rust on them or something like that. So that's the change really for the mine, and expect to see improvements on this in each iteration that comes forward. But overall, like the little bit that it adds to that piece. So that's a quick look at a couple small changes that I've made. What I'm going to do at the end of this video is I'll tack on a couple still photos that I took of the board sets all laid out, so you can get a sense of that, as some people in the past have asked me to show, you know, pieces in, you know, in the setting. And because I had the new river textures on the Martian rivers and these, you know, small modifications, I did set up all the boards for a couple photos to include on the website as well. And I'll include a couple of those so that you can see that. Mine is a little hard to see in some of those photos since it is a corner piece, and I don't want to bring in a lot of background when I'm shooting the boards. It's a little hard to pick out in one of the pictures, but you'll see it if you look for it. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Feel free to leave comments and keep an eye on the channel, as I'll have another video coming out very shortly.